come over here tonight, I want y'all, because a lot of people don't realize there's more over there a lot of nights than here. And they're not just over there goofing off. They do have some fun together, and I envy that. I had fun when I was y'all's age too.
Yes.
And I'm thankful for Jamie and Michelle working for them. They worked for weeks before they went up there studying about the ark. They know more about the ark than I did when we got into it, because they had the facts and stuff down. And when I want y'all to know, when I seen y'all all in your orange, I know Cotton, Judy seen you, Jamie, anybody that went, I know Cheryl them seen them in their orange. When I seen y'all together as a group, and most time y'all were all together, and I thought about it all week, it puts a smile on my face.
Yeah.
Because y'all have a togetherness that, that it's just hard to, in this day and time when so many people is all about individualism. And I hope, them girls, as they work with them, and they're so faithful to come this bus come. This ain't just no night. This is, most nights might be a few that's not even here. But they find a way to get here.
Amen.
So this ain't the church of tomorrow, this is the church of today. I think about y'all every day, about the early, I want you to know that. Because if this church, if the door stays open here, it will be up to y'all one day.
Yeah.
Too many times people will just say, let God they'll handle it when the time comes. They're battling the world today, but I didn't battle, or Cotton Riley didn't battle, or Mitchell didn't battle. It is a rough world out there today that wants to devour. So I know y'all supper's on the table. I want y'all to just come over here where they could see. And a lot of them, you know what? Sometimes I have to work on your names. Because most times, but you know what? God knows your name.
Amen.
You're no number. You're a name. And you're very special. And we're going to be talking about tonight, but I'm not going to keep y'all in y'all's class. But pray for them. Pray for Michelle. This church has been, anything that's ever came up has been more generous to help activities. And this is what we got to do this last week. I hope y'all had a good time, and just keep on learning about the Lord, and being in His army is the best place to be. So, Jamie, I know y'all got supper on the table, and you want to say anything?
I do. I just want to also point out, Michelle's not here. She's at church camp. But she drives the bus every week, and we usually have about 10 more. Some of them that rode the bus were able to get their own way here tonight. But she is a big part of why this is growing so big, and I wanted to just mention that.
Yeah, a lot of times it's 25. About 8 to 10 more than right here.
That get
Yeah.
rights here.
I was really proud how many this one they were.
Yeah, I mean, I noticed, and I wasn't on the bus, and I know y'all was chattering, you probably not as much coming back, but it'd been a whole lot different if I'd been on there y'all's age. Worse, but yeah, but seeing y'all together and having a good time, I'm like Cotton, I know a bus comment, but when I seen y'all together several times, I just looked, and y'all could get around for one thing, I envied. I mean, but so y'all go back and pray for them, and uplift them, and encourage them. Don't take them for granted. Okay? All right. Y'all ready to get back on and eat chicken?
They're gonna have supper, do they need any volunteers?
We just stay put. Just stay put. I mean, they said they wasn't going to come through the front door, they was going to come through the back. I said, go ain't that shy. But it is, it's good that we have that program. And like I said, they studied, and I was over, they had it printed out for weeks on the Noah's Ark and the dimension, and went to Bible and what the Lord had to say about it. Because we just came from seeing that, and you look, but you know what? I got some articles that they had printed out, and I had her dig up for me. The questions, there's lots of questions. How? To see God was answered.
Right.
And I know one of the big questions I heard asked, but I read it in Genesis tonight, if you go before the count. Well, did they stay awake or did they eat? It said on there, take the food they eat, animals. So that's just amazing itself. The number You know, I've heard about Noah's Ark all my life. But when you get down to it, 10 generations after God created Adam and Eve, and here's a big question. We don't know how long it was before Adam and Eve had their first child. Noah was 500 years old when he had his first one. And I always say we don't know how many years. If a year is 1,000, and 1,000 years is a day, and a day is 1,000 years, we don't know how much time elapsed before the first child was born. We really don't. But we do know from the first one was born to Noah by the genealogy, 10 generations passed. And the world got so wicked in 10 generations, the Lord said, I've had enough. That was 4,300 years ago. So you just want to count the generations to where from then we are today and where we come. Think about it, a lot of talk about some of the things. The Levitical laws had not even been written when the flood came, because that was way after. Because a lot of people want to put that in, talk about the clean and unclean. They hadn't even been written. But you know, God, He found a way. You know what I was amazed at, much as I used to love horses? Horses was only 2 went. They didn't fit that. Chewing the cud and all. But they replenished. Everything did. The birds, I was amazed by the birds that took 7 pairs. You know, I think Cotton don't like his mockingbird. I heard talking about it. We raise the window up and we listen to theirs every morning. I love the mockingbird.
I do too.
Well, if you ever see a look on Judy's face and I mention that. I love the mockingbird. I got one, I guess. He's just, but what I'm getting at, the birds. But you know, just something to hit on before we get into the study tonight. It was a third the size of the unsinkable Titanic. We know on the maiden voyage of the Titanic, man said it cannot be sunk.
Mm-hmm.
It's in the bottom of the Atlantic Ocean right now with a lot of people on it. It's a third of the size of it. The unsinkable. Mankind says there was no way the engineering, and I sat and watched the building of the ark up there because I couldn't get around so much, and I seen what was going to be in a 3-hour period, and I went back to the front and watched. Said there's no way man could build at that day and time something that size that would have stayed together. But by the way it built, we seen the timbers in it. In this one, and the way it was tied together, it's amazing. But God had to do with this 510-foot minimum, and it could have been up to 550. It's just going by what a cubic was and different things. 85 feet wide, 51 feet high, 3 stories, and the roof. It said on there, and see, man has to put speculation into this. Counting the species known by the experts, it could have been up to 17,600 on there, up to 50,000. And by going to the size of a sheep, there was more than enough room for double that on that ship, the cubic feet. I wouldn't have thought it, but that's what it said, the people that's figured that. So regardless, there was plenty of room. And you say, well, why are you bringing this up? That was one of the great miracles. They talk about the 7 wonders of the world. You know, things like that get left out. You know, God in that 120 years, probably in building it, when the door was shut, the door was shut. Even the animals of the world had to suffer from man's sin. It's all wiped off the face of the earth, other than the ones on the ship. We do know that they did replenish because we got them now. Is anybody in here, before we get into tonight, anything that really stood out? I know the kids, a lot of them, I asked them later, the size.
That's what I wanted to ask you, Jenny and Judy, when y'all saw that, and when you're just the size of it, I mean, because we've known about Noah's Ark, you know, they get to talk about the measurements and stuff like that, but to actually see the size of it.
When you pull into the parking lot and at a distance, you see just the end of it, everybody went, wow, that was on the bus. And then of course when you get up there and you see, it's just, that's
there's no way man could have done that without God. There's no way.
Yeah, some of the timbers were 75 feet, just like where the Bible plumbed to the top, in one piece. And you know, there was, and they said, when I went through that, them come out of a forest in Utah. And it was amazing. God's plan to save all that He created and mankind. You know, as we get into lesson tonight, there's one thing that nobody really knows for sure. Nobody's ever been able to identify the wood it was made out of. What was it? The Bible said.
Gopher.
Gopher, but nobody's ever been able to identify a gopher, according to everything I've read.
Yeah.
But it must have been plentiful in that day. You know, it was just, I was telling Miss Pat, I said there was a lot of pot makers, all I can say. People don't realize for the water, how many, everything in the water, that caught my eye more than anything else. The bases of water. I'm talking about every deck, every nook, cranny, and they went to it and had it all. And the workmanship on this thing was unbelievable. I don't know what Noah's day, but they said those people were really skilled carpenters and woodworkers in that thing. I mean, them people leading up to Noah's ancestry and all. You know, Methuselah, the oldest man on the face of the earth, just died the year of the flood before. Noah's daddy died before he did. Then I thought, well, God didn't want Methuselah, anything to happen, he was out of the picture. He was the granddaddy of Noah. You know, ain't it amazing though in 10 generations it got to where it was at, that God couldn't even look upon the face of the earth. Here we are 4,300 years later. The do's and don'ts, and that's what we're going to be talking about just a little tonight. Before we do, I mean, it is, I think the church will give the privilege to the kids to go for us. I mean, you know, my little great-grandson, I knew really better than to take him in one sense because kids 6-year-old, 5, but there was a bunch of parents took them. But one thing amazing, his won't know, and he's looking how they watered them pots. You know, they had these pots, these birds, and these little things drank out of. It was unbelievable, the workmanship. And they had all of them had the lids on but one, because I reckon they didn't want people putting stuff in it. And he comes and, how'd they get the water out of the top of the lid?